Knoxville Pokemon Regional Championships. In this match, we're going to be bringing you Joseph Ugarte versus Kyle Livinghouse. One of these players will be joining.
One of these guys will be joining Joseph Castagliola in the finals. Should be a really good match. Two completely different teams here, rather than the Xerneas Lunalamir we saw last time. And we have Joe running that Evil Tall Groudon, Venusaur, Tapu Koko, Incineroar, Metagross team against Kyle's his baby. Kangaskhan, Tornadus, Xerneas, Groudon, Incineroar, and Amoonguss. Something to note here is Joseph, when he was on round 3 for stream, he was playing against his Kangaskhan Tornadus team. Which was piloted by James Evans. Of course, James having that Hitmontop instead of Incineroar kind of changes the matchup a bit, but he was able to win that game. So shows that he knows what he's doing against these Kangaskhan Tornadus teams. So has probably a really good game plan going into this.
Well, we have seen a lot of Kangaskhan Tornadus throughout the weekend, so I imagine Joseph has experienced that as well, and has a game plan for how to deal with it. So Joseph leading with Incineroar and Yveltal. So these are two dark types that cannot be affected by any sort of prankster moves. Although normally they're not too worried about being taunted in general. So maybe that doesn't make a huge difference.
And this is Joseph, what he was talking about earlier with his match. This is his lead that he likes to go to for this matchup. Yveltal puts on a lot of pressure with that Snarl, kind of limits the switching that it likes to do. But the more important thing is, two Pokemon that are just fine shipping away. They don't give these Kangaskhan Tornadus teams the knockouts so that they can switch around, get that Groudon or get that Xerneas in. We just see a trade of fake outs here. Very slow, unclimatic turn 1, but
so that's sort of the game plan that we saw Joseph go for in round 3 yesterday. Was just clicking Snarl and not giving any of those KOs to not give James the opportunity to bring in a Pokemon after one of his fainted to take advantage of Tailwind. So I could definitely see, Joseph taking sort of the same approach to this matchup against Kyle. It's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If that worked for him previously, unless Kyle finds a way to outplay it, why change what you're doing?
Right, but we talked about his matchup with James. James had that Hitmontop, which really couldn't pivot around this chip as much. Incineroar for Kyle's side is much more important here. Allowing him to U-turn around these Snarls, these Intimidates, getting those restrictions out when he actually needs to, rather than having to hope that something is KO'd. So just giving him more opportunities to start getting that board set up.
Yeah,
I see a Snarl avoid onto the Tornadus here. That's actually kind of important.
That's a pretty big avoid, in Kyle's favor. So we do see Kyle's Incineroar going for the U-turn first. That could potentially give Joseph a chance to U-turn in something to deal with whatever it is that Kyle brings in, if that's what he goes for.
Right, and after that Icy Wind, Xerneas kind of looking like a prime Pokemon to bring in here, or even the Groudon. Combinations of like Supersonic Sky Strike and Eruption could be doing a lot of damage here. So Kyle getting that Icy Wind set up, really good speed control, and the importance of the Incineroar in this matchup is allowing him to pivot out of this in a much better spot now than what he was before.
Right, so Kyle there, thanks to having U-turn instead of that Hitmontop that we saw Joseph face previously, like you said, able to U-turn, so he's able to bring his Groudon in without it taking a Snarl.
However, knockoff doing a little bit of damage, not a whole lot. However, this Groudon is special, so, any damage is important to just get that eruption damage down is very important. I don't know if we've seen overheat from Kyle's Groudon. We know we saw it from, of course, from Keith missing twice.
Right.
But really, just like I said, any chip damage is important here. Yveltal's got to be a little bit worried about taking another combination of attacks
is going to deal a lot of damage to this Yveltal. So definitely has to look out. But what's your switch in? What are you switching into an Eruption plus Supersonic Sky Strike here?
Right. Yveltal protecting himself, which is a very smart play in my eyes. Icy Wind from Tornadus, so not taking the bait, saving that Z move for a little bit later. Icy Wind going on to Incineroar, not going to do a whole lot of damage. Probably not going to stick anyway. Could be seeing Incineroar probably U-turn out here. So Groudon goes for that Eruption, so going to be doing decent damage to the Incineroar. Yveltal, of course, protecting itself here, so not taking any damage. But that Eruption, not doing a whole lot of anything there, but still good chip damage. He does have the Kangaskhan on his team, so maybe he comes back in later. Double Edge that's probably in Double Edge KO range at neutral. So just good chip damage to get spread around. And if Joseph has something like maybe Venusaur here, could be an interesting little situation where forcing Tornadus to have to It is the Venusaur actually, so forcing Tornadus to have to target down this Venusaur slot and maybe not have like Supersonic Sky Strike onto that Yveltal like it previously could have.
Right. So I like the Venusaur coming in here because thanks to its speed and sun, it is able to kind of play around some of the speed advantage that Kyle's trying to set up.
Right, and we do see this taunt come out on the Venusaur, so not wanting to deal with that sleep powder. And we do see a grass knot, so Joseph not taking the bait.
And that's definitely the play to make.
That's a lot of damage.
That's a lot of damage. And we do see Overheat coming out
missing
and a
again
miss on the Yveltal. So Overheat just, really unfortunate for the players using it today.
Yeah, Overheat, that is the drawback. That base 130 attack does have that 90% accuracy, though. Not exactly the most reliable. In theory, should be a very reliable move, but today has shown that not always is such. And now that Yveltal picks up that KO on the Groudon. Tornadus taking a decent amount of damage from that. But if there's a Pokemon that you really want to have still, it is the Xerneas in this situation.
Right, so
especially with no Sun for Venusaur, and the Taunt doesn't have to worry about the Sleep Powder or a Sludge Bomb. And Tornadus still has that Supersonic Sky Strike active, but will switch out. So Incineroar coming back in, and this is kind of the great things about the this team with the Incineroar variant. It does have all of these extra options to kind of just get itself out of tough situations and set up the board position for Kyle now.
Yeah, so Xerneas going straight for a Geomancy. Pretty free to do that because of the speed drops on the Yveltal. It doesn't have to worry about taking a potential knockoff before clicking Geomancy. And also, like you said, Venusaur being taunted and not in Sun, so it can't Sludge Bomb before getting the special attack or special defense boost.
Sludge Bomb is still going to hurt, but it's actually not even into the Xerneas slot. Going after that Tornadus, so Sludge Bomb plus Snarl likely would have KO'd that slot. However, Kyle making a great play, getting that Incineroar in, preserving his Tornadus for later. The special attack drop on Xerneas is unfortunate. However, I think you take that just for getting the Geomancy boost anyway.
Right. Xerneas is still a +1 special attack.
Right.
Yveltal is not going to appreciate taking, those boosted fairy moves.
Right.
Even, so yeah, you're not at +2, but you've still got a lot of extra firepower.
Right. And important thing to note is this is the last turn of Venusaur's taunt, so can't protect here. But we actually don't even see a fake out.
Yeah, so we don't see a fake out. We do see the Moonblast coming straight into the Yveltal, and that is able to pick up the KO. Venusaur, of course, still has something it could be doing. So we do see the Sludge Bomb going into the Xerneas. Actually does respectable damage despite, the special attack, or special defense boost on Xerneas side of the field.
Right, that's good chip, and kind of the important thing here is that Yveltal going down, while it might seem kind of questionable with Fake Out being live for the Yveltal not to protect itself, I actually think it's a really good play, especially if this is going to be Groudon coming in here for Joseph, because, okay, the Groudon goes down, Venusaur's taunt, Yveltal goes down, Venusaur's taunt is gone, Groudon is now able to come in, but it's actually Metagross. But, so no Groudon here at all, but if that was Groudon, Venusaur would have been faster than the Tornadus, could have Sludge Bombed that slot potentially, or could have just gotten another Sludge Bomb off before Tornadus goes for something like Supersonic Sky Strike. But with Metagross now, could be something. We saw Bullet Punch from Alex's Metagross, something that most Metagross like to carry. And with that Sludge Bomb chip, maybe it's in Bullet Punch range.
Right, Metagross hits really hard thanks to that Tough Claw's ability. It's almost like a free life orb for any attacks that make contact. On top of its already high attack stat, it can deal a lot of damage just with Bullet Punch, even though it does have a low base power. Right,
so Metagross will Mega Evolve, not worried about that Incineroar's Intimidate in the back, knowing it's got to get some damage off now. We actually don't even see the Bullet Punch.
Yeah, so no Bullet Punch coming out, which actually I think is fine, because this Iron Head will be dealing, the damage for sure.
Right,
so,
just getting its guaranteed KO onto Xerneas.
Making sure you get the damage off that you need to.
Right, and knowing that's really the last kind of big offensive damage dealer on Kyle's team. But that Hurricane, actually, just the raw Hurricane.
Yeah, the blind Hurricane there to pick up the KO. That definitely helps Kyle here, because he does have his Incineroar in the back. Joseph also having his own Incineroar, right? So we're sort of in a mirror here. Both Incineroars taking some chip damage. I don't know. It's hard to see who's taking this one home.
Right. This is going to be a very close finish in my eyes. Really going to start coming down to some damage rolls. We see the Incineroars are both chipped down to around half. We've seen Supersonic Sky Strike do around a little bit over half earlier from Keith's.
Right,
Not sure
like,
if this is trained the exact way though. So Incineroar could potentially be KO'd here.
Joseph's Incineroar
Stomping Tantrum. Yeah, Stomping Tantrum could potentially KO Kyle's Incineroar, or the combination of Fake Out Iron Head maybe KOing Kyle's Tornadus. Or there's always the issue of if Kyle fakes out the Metagross here, which he does, and he goes for the Incineroar, you would always boost the Stomping Tantrum. But we actually see Tailwind come out from Tornadus.
I actually like this Tailwind. Depending on how Kyle has trained his Incineroar, you know, if it is able to be faster than Metagross under Tailwind, that could be huge. But I guess not mattering, so we do see a Stomping Tantrum pick up the KO, and that really swings this in Joseph's favor.
That's a huge KO for Joseph. That KO, no threat whatsoever from this Tornadus to KO against the Steel-type Metagross. Really, Incineroar the last line of hope for Kyle there. I'm not sure if that was a damage roll or whatnot, but just regardless, a very big KO for Joseph. We do see the Z-move coming out from Kyle.
Supersonic Sky Strike could potentially KO the Incineroar, but it's going to be going into a resisted hit if it's targeting the Metagross. So, you know, tough to see it out here. But Kyle could just be fishing to, you know, see how much this does, so he can get an idea of his damage rolls.
Getting the information about how this is going to play out. We actually see that the Incineroar does live, so knowing that now it is an Assault Vest Incineroar, if he didn't know that already.
Right.
And get some good. That's actually also good information for both players on the -1 Iron Head damage on the Tornadus. Possibility that if this Metagross does carry Bullet Punch, with how much damage that is, maybe comes into effect of the damage roll from Iron Head into Bullet Punch, and whether or not Kyle's able to decide if, like, okay, if I actually live this or not for going forward.
Right. So, what a close game, you know. Incineroar went down to Recoil after Flare Blitzing to pick up the KO, you know, and 1-0, that tells you about how close this game was.
Right,
you know,
and then
it went back and forth.
Right, then you have the Overheat miss on Kyle's side. If that connects, then that's a totally different game.
Right.
So, very just back and forth throughout, a little bit of RNG involved, but just shows that how close of a matchup this really is. And it's just something where it's just going to come down to who's just going to play better and who's RNG going to favor. Because if that Overheat hits, then we can very easily see Kyle being the one winning this game. So, really, really interesting to see how Joe's going to kind of adapt to that. Really, like, he's the winning player, but like we're saying, he was almost a step away from losing that game. So maybe we see some adaptations out of Joe, or maybe we don't see it out of Kyle, because Kyle's like, okay, my game plan was fine.
Right, my game plan
hit.
worked. You know, 9 times out of 10, I'm good to go, so why change it up, because I've already had that one time. Don't fall for the gambler's fallacy. You can still miss just as often, even though you missed before. But you know what I'm saying, right? Like, if you're like, oh, all I have to do is do the same thing and not miss.
There are people who say, oh, I win if I hit Precipice Blades.
And those people are not in Top Cut right now.
So, going to be jumping into Game 2 here. Joseph taking Game 1. Kyle having to win this next game in Game 3 if he wants to set up that rematch with his carpool buddy, Joseph Castagliola, in the finals. So adaptation from Kyle's side, though. Incineroar Xerneas coming out against Incineroar Venusaur. So, not the usual Fire-type partner we see for Venusaur.
Right, so that was actually something I thought was interesting in last game. Joseph brought his Venusaur without bringing Groudon, you know, kind of just relying on Kyle to bring the Groudon to supply the sun. It kind of makes me wonder if that's the game plan right now as well, or if maybe he does actually have his own Groudon in the back. Right,
and we see Kyle's Intimidate on his Incineroar going first, so we'll have the faster fake out here unless it's a speed tie. Xerneas kind of isn't a decent enough spot to try and set up a Geomancy if it wants to. It will be faster than Venusaur because no sun, so Sludge Bomb won't be doing as much damage. However, there is no taunt, so Venusaur is free to start firing off some sleep powders.
And that's not what you want to be faced with if you're Kyle.
We actually see a switch into Amoonguss. So Kyle kind of going back to that support the Xerneas mode with the redirection and Incineroar fake outs. Actually a really good switch in here for Joseph at the time. Getting that Metagross in front of Xerneas would have been a great thing to have.
Yeah, so seeing that fake out into Incineroar, you know, Joseph really kind of covered his options there. At first, I'm thinking, switching one Fire Week Pokemon out for another Fire Week when that's an easy bait for a Flare Blitz, maybe a little risky. Joseph covered for that by faking out the Incineroar. to make sure no fire type attacks.
Right.
Could target
And while this Metagross was hoping to get out on the field in front of Xerneas, Amoonguss is fine. Like, you don't have a problem with that. Ironhead and a Flare Blitz likely to pick up a KO into the Amoonguss if he chooses to go for that, because Metagross is coming in at neutral, and with the Suck Ball boost, is going to be doing a whole lot of damage. And that Spore threat here is very big. We actually see Stomping Tantrum
coming in.
Going to be doing a lot of damage.
Yeah, that does a ton of damage as U-turn coming out from Kyle's Incineroar. Going to let him reposition. The Amoonguss didn't click Rage Powder there, so
so no Rage Powder. Likely seeing a Spore coming out here from this Amoonguss, and really kind of surprised that Joseph just opting to give him that Spore. Maybe realizing, oh, it'll be okay, I'll be able to pivot around it, however, or maybe just expecting a Protect on the Amoonguss. But regardless, something is probably taking a nap at this point.
Right, so we do see Groudon coming in here. If Incineroar actually targeted with Fire move into the Amoonguss, this could be dealing a lot of damage.
Right, this Flare Blitz could be doing a lot, or we could just be seeing a U-turn out from the Incineroar into Venusaur, which would be in a great position right now for Joseph.
Venusaur would be in a good spot right now.
And especially, we actually do see a Flare Blitz coming out.
Joe's Incineroar is at -1 due to an Intimidate.
Targeting into that Groudon, though, trying to fish, knowing that Kyle doesn't have that barrier, probably trying to fish for a KO there. And we see the Spore coming out onto Incineroar. So if it was that U-turn out into Venusaur, that Joseph would not have been punished for that whatsoever. However, this Incineroar now asleep. And with Amoonguss next to Groudon, there's really nothing on Joseph's team that wants to take the combination of Eruption or Earth Power. And with Amoonguss right there protecting Groudon, it's going to be really hard to get some damage off. But actually, Amoonguss switching out, so doesn't really even want to be around here. Going into that Incineroar, maybe expecting Venusaur to potentially want to come in, like after a KO, wanting to get a Fake Out to stall that out.
Right, so bringing this in here is not a bad play. Getting an Intimidate, if nothing else. Losing it to the Ironhead on the switch in, but Metagross is still going to be subject to this Eruption from almost full HP. That's going to deal a heap of damage.
Right, and this Groudon picking up the KO on Metagross, doing some decent chip damage to the Incineroar. That Metagross going down, though, is important because now invites the Venusaur back in for Joseph's side, and I'm really kind of surprised Kyle opted to give up the Incineroar there for the Amoonguss, because Venusaur, of course, can just bypass Amoonguss' Rage Powder.
Right,
just put
Venusaur
the Groudon
doesn't worry about Amoonguss at all.
Right, and with Xerneas coming in now, Venusaur's faster and can Sludge Bomb that slot if it wants to.
Right.
So, very tricky spot here for Kyle. Now has to worry about, is really kind of at the mercy of who this Venusaur wants to target down.
Right, so Joseph has to, he has to get this turn right. We do see no Protects as the Sleep Powder goes into the Groudon slot. So Groudon going to take a nap just like Incineroar is right now.
Right, so Groudon going to sleep. Xerneas Geomancying, kind of its only play here, I feel.
Right.
Really needing to just get it going at some point, start getting this damage off. So boosting up, if Incineroar stays asleep here, it could be looking pretty good here for Kyle, especially with it staying on the field, getting it trapped in there. Maybe something like a Dazzling Gleam Eruption next turn if Groudon's able to wake up, can come in and just really start putting damage down, because at the moment, Kyle, your Groudon's very healthy. Incineroar stays asleep. Xerneas is boosted. You're in a great spot to start doing a lot of damage.
Yeah, like Kyle, this was the right time for him to boost. He's removed the Metagross, which is probably one of the biggest threats to the Xerneas. Yes, he still has to deal with Venusaur, but that's dealing a lot less damage than the Metagross was.
Right, but actually Groudon doesn't want to stick around here. Switching out for that Amoonguss. So Amoonguss coming back out onto the field. So we actually see Moonblast come out from Kyle's side, going into that Incineroar. So ignoring the Venusaur, Sash is still intact for later. More importantly, Venusaur is going to get off another Sleep Powder, but Xerneas avoids
dodging
it.
The Sleep Powder. So justice for Overheat, boys. Can I get an F in chat?
But this is still an important we still haven't seen the last mon, and it actually is that Eviltal. So not Groudon, where if it was his own Groudon, that Fire typing would have been great to help deal with this Amoonguss. Or we were talking about how Venusaur can put things to sleep. Amoonguss is just as free to put the Eviltal to sleep.
Yeah, so I think if you're Joe, you're really wishing that you had not Yveltal. in this matchup right now. You know, like
right,
just the state of the game, definitely not what you wanted to see. So getting off a Snarl here into Xerneas' Protect, not going to be a big deal for that Amoonguss, as Amoonguss just puts Yveltal to sleep.
Right, Yveltal is really not a Pokemon that when you put it in this type of situation, it's not bad in general. However, it really wants to do its work whenever the restricted Pokemon aren't, when Xerneas isn't out, or Groudon's not under Tailwind. And Joseph keeping it in the back, by the time he got it in, it was just simply too late for it to be doing what it was supposed to be.
Absolutely.
So great adaptation there from Kyle. Kind of, once again, playing his support the Xerneas thing game, so just pivoting around his Amoonguss and his Incineroar, getting his Xerneas set up, and just finding his KOs without having to really risk big damage onto those restricteds. Whereas Joe kind of banked on just playing aggressively through that. Made a couple of reads where if they had gone the other way, could have completely flipped the game. Like turn being, he ignoring that Amoonguss. And I think that's something where if it's out on the field, he really can't afford to, because we've seen the power of sleep in that game and other games before, where like we always say, there's such threat from these restricted Pokemon that you want to target them down and you just ignore it. And then suddenly you go to sleep, and Incineroar sat on the field for Joseph doing nothing for 3 turns, and was able to allow Kyle to just set up his board however he saw fit.
Yeah, like in a lot of situations, you know, putting a Pokemon to sleep is actually preferable to knocking a Pokemon out, because now you have 2 Pokemon on the field, but one of them not going to be doing anything. So it's just, you know, it puts you in a temporary 2v1 situation, and that was something that Kyle really took advantage of.
Yeah, so we actually see Joseph leading with his own. Finally bringing his own. He brings his own Groudon finally next to that Venusaur, and we get the repeat of Kyle's Game 1 lead, which is Tornadus and Incineroar.
Yeah, so this Tornadus and Incineroar lead, you can only fake out one of these Pokemon, you know, so you're taking some damage somewhere. If you taunt wrong, or, you know, it's all about which player's in the other player's head.
Right.
You know, like...
There's several different options for each player here. Kyle can opt to like fake out the Groudon, taunt the Venusaur, but if he goes for that, then Venusaur can Sludge Bomb, which is just, or like Kyle can go on the offensive with his Tornadus. There's just a lot of different options from each player here.
Right.
And like, really just going to come down to getting it right. Venusaur, not protecting here, will take a fake out, and Tornadus does opt to go on the offensive here. I'm going to assume. We could be the Z-Tailwind, more than likely the Supersonic Sky Strike, wanting to
go for the Z-Tailwind. There's not a threat of Prankster Taunt.
Wanting to get that damage off onto either KOing the Venusaur now, or just getting big damage off onto Groudon. So I'll have to see who this goes into. It's going to be that Groudon.
Yeah, so going into the Groudon here is actually going to severely weaken an Eruption, which is going to give Tornadus the ability to stick around for an extra turn to set Tailwind later.
Right, doing a lot of damage there. Tornadus able to hang on comfortably. Now free to go for like Taunt on the Venusaur, or could set up Tailwind like you mentioned.
Right.
And Incineroar, with that Eruption being weakened, more than likely out of range of Earth Power. So if he does want to Tailwind with the Tornadus, Incineroar is free to pivot around into the restricted into restricted in the back.
Yeah, so this is exactly, you know, what a Kangtorn player wants to see. Yes, it's an Incineroar, not a Kangaskhan, but getting that Tailwind up, and you know, either Incineroar gets knocked out or U-turns out here, and Kyle's able to take advantage of this Tailwind.
Right, and we see the Sleep Powder surprisingly going into Tornadus there. Not kind of surprised that wasn't the Incineroar, considering Incineroar more than likely going to want to U-turn out in this situation. If you're able to get that Sleep Powder onto Incineroar, you're stopping that.
Right.
And then it's trapped on the field, and just kind of limits Kyle's options. But now that you go after the Tornadus really did its job and got the Tailwind up. It really doesn't care if it's asleep. And now, Groudon, Tailwind, Eruption.
Right.
Kyle's been able to execute his game plan perfectly. And that Sleep Powder, I think that Sleep Powder was a good play. I think it just needed to be in the other slot, because now that he didn't go after the Incineroar, we talked about how it's so important for maneuvering around and getting this set up. He just not stopping that just allowed Kyle to get into the spot now where Groudon's going to be doing a lot of work.
Yeah, so Tornadus taking a sleep turn. Instead of taking that sleep turn, going to switch out for Incineroar, which is going to help Kyle get in a position where he doesn't have to worry about how were these Pokemon trained. Is the Venusaur faster than the Groudon? Tailwind and Sun Chlorophyll matching, but gets off an Eruption to KO Joseph's Groudon.
Yeah, now that Groudon goes down, really limited options for how Joseph can even retaliate to the Groudon. That Earth Power from Joseph's side, kind of one of his major ways of dealing with the Groudon on Kyle's side. Yveltal coming in here doesn't exactly want to be facing down this situation. Eruption's going to hurt, and this is another situation where not getting that Sleep Powder onto Incineroar has been crucial. It's able to come back on the field now. Venusaur burned its Protect already, and Incineroar is just free to fake out into the Yveltal slot if it wants to.
Yeah, so Joseph going for that double protect, not getting it on the Venusaur. So taking a fake out into the Venusaur slot and likely an Eruption here. So Venusaur's going to go down. And that's going to leave, Kyle in a really strong position.
Right, and when you look at the Pokemon in the back, you have Incineroar, Metagross, and Tapu Koko. All of Pokemon which can't deal with Groudon.
None of those Pokemon want to face a Groudon. So the one saving grace here that Joseph has is Yveltal actually deals with Groudon fairly well, especially this special variant. If it can survive a single Eruption, start getting some Snarls off, it's not the worst Pokemon to have out here.
Right.
But surviving a single Eruption is still, something it needs
However,
to be able to do.
yeah, you have Eruption out, plus the threat of an Incineroar going for Flare Bullets here. So really tough spot for Joseph.
Well, the Incineroar is definitely in Bullet Punch range if Joseph is willing to sacrifice
I was going to say,
his,
are you willing to sacrifice your Metagross, and you still don't know if Xerneas is in the back? Like, if you just sacrifice that, then you would
leaving
just leave
Yveltal to deal with the Xerneas, probably not the best plan here.
Right, so we do see that Groudon is going for Eruption on Kyle's side. No surprise there. Yveltal should be able to take that. Actually procs the berry, so
with
that
the
berry,
that's actually a huge...
That berry is very big, so Kyle probably hoping that, okay, Eruption and Flare Blitz would not KO without that, or it might just KO anyway, but we see a U-turn come out, saving that Intimidate for later, so very smart on Joseph's side not to Mega Evolve that.
Mega Evolve and keep it, keep that Clear Body ability.
However, if Tornadus comes back out here, then we're just going to see the Tailwind get set right back up.
Well, Tornadus is still asleep, so
that is true.
There are going to be some turns where it could go down. So the Xerneas coming in here, potentially taking a Snarl.
Foul play, I think, is a much better play here from Kyle's side. From Joseph's side rather. You just want to get that damage down, weaken that Eruption as much as possible.
So we do see Tailwind end here. And yes, it's a 4v2, but these are the two Pokemon I think that you want to have to deal with what Kyle's got.
Yeah, this kind of creates an interesting little call here for Joseph's side. You would have to assume Snarl into Stomping Tantrum will KO that Groudon, or maybe you go for like the combination of Foul Play and Iron Head KO Xerneas. It really just comes down to if Joseph able to make a call on what Kyle's able to do.
Right, so we do see Incineroar coming in here in the Groudon spot. So once again, it paying off that Joseph didn't Mega Evolve previously.
Right.
So he still had that Clear Body, meaning that Metagross is going to be firing off a full power attack right here.
So Kyle bringing that Incineroar in, as he's done throughout the tournament. I just see a Sucker Punch from Groudon, so I think maybe just wanting to get that hit off before like a Moonblast or something from Xerneas, potentially, or not exactly sure what Joseph was going for with their Snarl would have been able to pick up a KO as well, and now we just see a Moonblast.
Okay.
So ignoring the Xerneas is very big here for Kyle, able to KO that Yveltal, and now there's no Pokemon to really punish that Groudon with Foul Play Snarl.
Yeah, so this Groudon is definitely going to be a problem.
And Tornadus coming back out too, so really, I guess Kyle just trying to make sure he gets his outs completely set. Groudon maybe going down to a Stomping Tantrum.
Right, probably wanting to get a Tailwind set before bringing Groudon in, you know, just to play it slightly safer.
But if this Iron Head goes into Xerneas and picks up a KO, which it does not, barely hangs, so we could see a flinch,
holds on,
but we
and
see
we do see the Geomancy coming out. So this Xerneas is definitely in bullet punch range.
Right.
But Kyle still has to KO 2 other Pokemon besides Xerneas. So, what do you do? Like, the Groudon is definitely more threatening to the Metagross. You have to target that. Is Metagross able to take, 2 or 3 Moonblasts?
It'll be interesting. Metagross is a very bulky Pokemon, naturally. But with this Mega Form, actually gets the Bullet Punch call
so the Bullet
right.
Punch, no Protect there. That's a good turn for Joseph. If this is... he still needs several things
and
to work out.
Tornadus
needs to stay asleep.
I believe that is its second turn of sleep.
Yes,
so still the potential
to stay asleep on this next turn.
There's still a chance. So if Tornadus either stays asleep, and Groudon protects, Metagross can KO the Tornadus, or if Groudon doesn't protect, Metagross can go for a Stomping Tantrum. So sleep going to be a very big determinant in how the end of this game plays out.
Right. So Groudon's defense is no joke. It's physical defense. So Stomping Tantrum, I don't know these calcs. So we do see the Groudon going for a Protect, trying to get that Wake Up for a Tailwind.
And it does wake up and get the Tailwind off. So gonna get that down. Really now coming down to and the Iron Head call. So really, Joseph just hoping that the Tornado is staying asleep.
Yeah. So
actually
Joseph,
holding on as well.
Playing into that, hoping Tornadus doesn't wake up here.
Now it comes down to
tough.
does
Overheat connect?
I think he can safely go for like an Earth Power here. Probably, I would assume Earth Power would KO, or he could just go for that Overheat. Earth Power is the move of choice.
Yeah, so Earth Power.
So it either comes down to some damage rolls, or does Metagross get the triple protect to stall out the Tailwind?
Right, I imagine Joseph knows these calcs better, so he goes for the double. Does not get it, and this Icy Wind, kind of seals the deal, because now even if Metagross finds a way to survive until the end of Tailwind, it's been hit with
this
an Icy
damage
Wind.
roll I'm assuming this is going to KO because it is Groudon and it does pick up the KO. But that could have been interesting where if the Metagross had not been KO'd there and Joseph wouldn't have Bullet Punched the Tornadus, like if he had Bullet Punch KO'd and that Earth Power lives, Metagross is still in a great position to try and win that game.
Right. So I suppose, fortunately, just for Joseph's hindsight, not to kick him, he did go down there, so it didn't ultimately matter if he had done something different on that last turn.
A much closer end game than I think what we were expecting.
Exactly. Yes, that
Joseph,
was definitely turned around much more than what.
Joseph making all the calls he needed to try and bring that back. Really, just kind of like one sleep turn away from being able to pull what seemed like an unwinnable spot into his favor. However, Kyle able to stay strong and win that game, and setting up the finals that I think we were all kind of hoping for.
This is the storyline of the season right here. I'm gonna call it right now. These two guys who got 0 sleep before Swiss are now playing each other in finals. After a nightmare getting here.
Hey, they said they came here. Their plan the whole time was they were going to see each other in finals, and now it's happening. So really, really excited for this finals, and just honestly, like you said, you couldn't paint a better storyline for this. So it's going to be awesome.
All right, guys, we're going to have a interview with Kyle Livinghouse, our second finalist at the 2019 Knoxville Pokemon Regional Championships. All right, guys, I am joined at the announcer's desk by Kyle Livinghouse, our second finalist here, about to play in the finals. How do you feel right now?
Amazing. This is like the literal best outcome. Me and my best friend in the finals together facing off. We got the furthest we can go, so it'll be a fun one.
Yeah, so we were just talking briefly about the storyline here. You said you guys didn't even decide if you were going to come until 1 a.m. Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Had some trouble getting here, not to downplay.
Mhm.
And so now you've really turned this weekend around, right? Like, what are your thoughts on the car crash final? Are we going to make that a trending hashtag?
Yeah, sure. Go for it, at everyone. The odds are low, but hey, we made it happen.
All right. So I really liked your set here. Lost game 1 and then came back, won games 2 and 3 to win the set, take yourself to the finals. Let's talk about that in game 3. Metagross out, like, I don't know my stomping tantrum calcs into Groudon. Were you worried?
Either.
Did you need that wake up?
I was pretty sure it was gonna KO me, but again, I don't know my calcs either because I haven't practiced much. But so I was like, I knew he needed the 3-turn sleep, and he needed me to what's it called? I could have got the double protect on the following turn with the Groudon to get
Right.
the tail in the following turn. So I was like, okay, those are pretty good odds. He needs a 3-turn sleep, and for me to not hit the double, I'm just gonna go for it instead of trying to get all cheeky and stuff and mess it up when the odds were a lot more in my favor. Just going the straightforward
Yeah.
way.
So I mean, it worked out. You got your tailwind up and hit that Earth power. So what did you think? Because you turned it around. Game 1, missed an overheat. Any thoughts on that? Like,
So yeah, game 1, I missed the overheat. I don't think it mattered too much though, because he didn't end up bringing Groudon. I was expecting Groudon, and once I saw no Groudon, I'm like, oh, I can just win with Amoonguss, and that's what I did game 2. And then I expected him to adjust back, so that's why I went to my game 1 game plan again, and it ended up working.
all right. So before you go, do you have anything you want to say to the viewers?
Yeah, sure. Car crash finals. That's all I'll say.
All right. Well, congratulations on your run so far. We're excited to see you guys in the finals. We'll be back after a short break, guys. Don't go anywhere.